Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. If you are joining us today for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy the video. If you are a loyal and long-time subscriber, thank you. And I know that these probably aren't going to be the most for everybody who's just going to watch them anyway. So I apologize for that, but thanks for sticking through it. But let's get right into it. What should you look for when you go to buy a John Deere 140 garden tractor? So that depends. I prefer to buy the later ones, 72 and forward, simply because they have 1-inch front spindles, so a little heavier duty front end, and the new style transmission. The best part about the new style transmission is just basically it's beefed up a little bit. It's more user friendly. I like it better. I've not had a ton of experience with the old one, but people don't seem to like them, and I do like these. I haven't had a whole lot of trouble with them at all. So that's the first thing I look for. If it's a newer one with the new style transmission, it does have slightly more value. There is an exception to that rule though. Number one, it can be a side tag, which means instead of having the tag right here, the tag would be right here. And that was only in 1968. They only did a few thousand of those or something. So those have a little bit more value. They're harder to come across, so those are something to watch out for. I still don't have one. I'd like to have one eventually. Another thing is if it is a patio tractor, they did not do the patio long enough to get the new transmission. So all the patios should have the old style transmission. With that being said, if you are trying to buy a tractor to use, not to collect, I wouldn't buy a patio just because they're way more expensive and they're more of a rare tractor. So if you're looking for a tractor that you want to use to do anything more than like mowing, go for the 72 through 74 with the new style transmission. That's what this tractor is, and also my other 140 over there. Then I have two 1970 patios, but we'll get into those later. If it's a non-running tractor that you are going to buy, there's not really a ton of mechanical stuff that you can check. Obviously, always check the oil. And it should be at least to the full mark. And I do need to change the oil on this in about 2 hours on it. I'm up to 35 hours on it. I rebuilt it and changed it at about 12. So I do need to change the oils. That's why you can't see the dipstick very well. But make sure that there's oil in the hash marks. And if there's not, thoroughly check that you have compression, which is a good thing to check anyway. Don't get me wrong. You can reach right in here and turn the engine with this pulley. Make sure you have compression and that you can make a full revolution if you're not sure about the engine state of the tractor. And if you do not have compression, you either have a blown up engine or a stuck valve or something to that effect. Anyway, it's not going to be good. The valve would be the best option, but if you're not mechanically inclined, you're still going to want to try and stay away from that because it will cost you a significant amount of money for what it is to have someone else fix it. Moving to the transmission, if you buy one non-running, make sure to disengage the hydrostatic transmission before you try to roll it onto your truck or trailer. To do that, you have this and you thread it all the way down. It'll get tight, but keep going until you can't anymore, and thread it all the way back out as engaged. If after you do that, you get the tractor running and it will not move, you will have to take the fender pan off, and there is a cover over the transmission. You'll take that off, which I'll take this piece here off, and there's two pins that pushes down in to disengage. If they haven't been used in a while, they'll get stuck down and then your transmission won't move. You'll just have to get those working again. Another thing that I like to check is how much play do the levers have. This is no play right here. I can move it about 2 inches in each direction. This one has a little bit of play. That's play. This is the work. And the middle lever should have a float option. If that doesn't work, you might have something worn out or just dirty. But this lever, that's the work, that's the play. Not going to hurt anything. Again, just something to watch out for. It'll tell you how many hours approximately people have been using certain hydraulics. It's not the end of the world, but again, something to watch out for. Also, steering play, something you can watch out for. It's not something that really matters a ton either. The gearbox is adjustable down underneath. It's just fun to get to. So, if the tractor you're buying has an hour meter like mine does, and this is not a factory correct hour meter, but if the tractor you're buying has an hour meter, make sure to check the hours and see if you can figure out if it is an original hour meter or not. This here is what an original hour meter should look like. 3 screws holding it to this bracket, and it will be on the steering shaft just like that. The other original style I have seen is I did have a tractor that the PTO switch was moved, and they had an hour meter in the dash. That was original. I'm not sure how many they did that way, but this is the normal, correct hour meter for this tractor. Also, if you happen to find a tractor with this hour meter does hold some pretty good value. This here is probably $200 or $300 easily, because you don't see them very often, and it's still an original. So if you do find one with that, that is a big plus. A lot of collectors will pay big money for that hour meter. If it has the bracket, it has to have the bracket to go on. But a lot of collectors will pay pretty good money for one of those to have it. I'm for function, not for, well, I like to have the original stuff also, but if you're just using it like me, go for function. This is I think a $20 or $30 Amazon quartz hour meter, which is supposed to be a decent brand, and it's got 35 hours with no issues. And then I just took a piece of flat steel and did some cutting and some welding, welded it onto a piece of pipe, and it's fine. It works great. It's solid. So if you're going for functionality, that's something to look for. If you're going for collector, this is something to look for. Also for original. But moving on to some cosmetics. Whenever I buy a tractor, I always look at the hood, because in the front, you'll see there's a crack here and a bigger crack here. And then I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hairline across there that I just painted shut when I painted this tractor. A hood in this condition is pretty good. Most of the time, you will find them with a big chunk missing, like this right here, or sometimes even worse. So if it's missing a chunk, it does take away a little bit of value, but not a ton. Cracked, I mean, that's very normal. I don't know that I have any 100 series hoods in this building right now that aren't cracked. So, I mean, that's just something normal. If you do find one that's not been fixed, like you see this one has, you see some bumps right there. If you find one that hasn't been fixed and it doesn't have cracks, that is a pretty good find. You don't find that all the time, so it's worth a little bit more. It just depends on your area where you live. Out here, you know, another 50 bucks or a 50 bucks less for a hood with chunk missing is what I usually figure. If you want the tractor just to use, again, cosmetics aren't really going to concern you. It will still work just fine with a chunk out of the hood. The next thing is the headlight bezel. When the hoods are run into, the headlight bezels are usually broke and either cracked or broken and pieces missing. I've had lots of tractors come in that has this piece here on each side and the rest is busted out and gone. So like this one, I don't even think has a crack in it anywhere. This might be one I fixed. Something like this. The headlight bezels, if you were to buy one on eBay, is like 200 bucks and up. So use your own judgment, but that does say something for the tractor. It does add a little value, especially if it's original. That probably says that either it was taken care of and they replaced those parts when they broke them, or it hasn't been run into anything. Another piece is the grill. It is usually missing anymore, and they're busted up quite often. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That grill is almost $100 on eBay the last time I checked. So watch out for that. If they're missing, that does take away from the value a little bit. And then the other piece that you would run into eventually is the front bumper. Normally those are there, and normally they're in pretty good shape, but just something to watch out for. If it is busted up, then somebody was probably abusing the tractor. Another thing that I have started watching for is, does it have the original plugs? Because you can't buy them anymore. The new plug replacements are like these, but obviously for the other end. So you can't buy the correct originals anymore. So that's something I watch for. It doesn't really add or subtract from the value any. It's just something that I watch out for to try to have the correct originals. But that's me. Another thing is a sleeve hitch, or these plugs. If it's missing those plugs, it's probably had either a tiller or a 3-point on it, depending which ones are missing. Sleeve hitch, big upgrade. They sell for about 200 bucks as average. They go from anywhere from $100 to $300, depending on the day and who's buying. So that's an upgrade to watch out for. If you do find one, that's a plus. Let's see here. A seat. I mean, again, you find a good seat, that's a good thing, but it doesn't add or subtract to or from the value a ton, maybe 50 bucks. Watch out for wheel weights. They are good, about 200 bucks a set right now, same as sleeve hitches. And depending on the tires, I would personally pay more for a tractor with, say, these 4 tires than I would with these 4 tires, even if they were all holding air and in good shape, because the Goodyear bar tires, which are the original tires, are junk. The Carlisles are better tires, so if you find one with Carlisle tires, bar tires, that's what I would go with. And then obviously the 3 or 5 rib front tires are just better all around. Now, if you are buying this tractor running and driving, I would advise, obviously, starting it up, throttling it up and down, making sure it runs good. Obviously, before you start any tractor that you're going to buy, check the oil, because if you're at someone's house and they don't have oil in their tractor and you're running it and it blows up when you run it, that could cause issues for you. So make sure to check the oil. Do not start it if it doesn't have enough oil in it. A lot of times people will sell them with a bad battery or with no battery. I do that myself because batteries are very expensive right now, and I can't afford to go buy one for every tractor I own because I have like 35 garden tractors. So I don't sell them with a battery. So if it does have a battery, that's a plus, because this battery right now is like $150. So if it has a battery right now, it's a good thing. You used to be able to pick up a lawnmower battery at TSC for 30 bucks. Now they're 50 or 60. And those are for them chintzy, cheap little ones with the other posts that you just run a 1/4-inch bolt through. Once you've checked the fluids and have it running, throttle it up and down like I said, make sure it runs good, doesn't spit and sputter and backfire. And then you can move on to driving it. If these 140s usually do have creep. So if it has creep, That's fairly easily adjustable. And if you want to do it the correct way, you take a bolt loose somewhere and do this and that and the other thing. Or if you want to be lazy like me, just loosen the 2 bolts that hold this on and put the lever in it and put it where it doesn't creep and tighten it down. That's what I did on this, and yeah, it works pretty good. So, good enough for me. So that is easily fixed. It's not really something that costs anything unless you have somebody else do it. Gas gauge. If it has a new gas gauge, probably should buy it if it's not out of the world on price, because they don't make these anymore. If you haven't noticed, Deere stopped making gas gauges. So the last gas gauge I saw sell, somebody had a new one of these still in the box, and they put it on a John Deere auction group, and it sold for almost $100. So that's a good thing to have, because now you can see how much gas you got in it. With the transmission, it will also make some noise as you drive it. That is normal, so just beware. There's not really a good way to test the hydraulics. You can run the inside lever, this one, and if it has a sleeve hitch, it will lift and lower the sleeve hitch, and a mower deck, if you have a mower deck. These 2 here do the front hydraulics. So unless it comes with like a blade or a snowblower, there's no way to test those, aside from just push it forward and see if the tractor bogs down after a second. Not the best thing for the whole hydraulic system, but it is something you can do. Also, if you're buying one that runs, it is nice if it does charge the battery, because it can be a pain to go through the charging system. Normally it's just the voltage regulator right here needs replaced. And when you do that, you have to make sure it is grounded. So it's like 30 or 40 bucks. Just something that's kind of an inconvenience. If you're buying a tractor with attachments, say we're going to buy this tractor just how it sits like this with a front snowplow. The front snowplow is worth about $400 in average condition. I would list this one for $600 if I was to sell it, simply because it's got brand new springs, both new hydraulic cylinders, and hoses. So this blade has pretty well been rebuilt without painting it. It does have a custom cutting edge. I did not put that on there. I do have the stock one, but I'm too lazy to switch it. So they would not have had multiple cutting edges unless you bought a rubber cutting edge, basically to use the blade as a squeegee, and you don't see that a ton. So if you do see that, it might be factory, it might not. I don't think there's any way to tell, but somebody else might correct me in the comments. Again, buying it running, make sure your PTO works. I don't have one on this tractor because the last time I took the engine out, I didn't put it back on because I don't use it. So just check that. And I mean, other than that, your brakes, you have dual brakes. It's a plus if they work. I need to readjust mine. They have brand new pads in them and they already won't skid the wheels anymore. So I need to readjust them. So if they don't work, it's not necessarily the brakes are all bad. It might just be an adjustment needs to happen. So you can check on that. Again, brakes don't really add or subtract value to your tractor. They're just kind of a plus to have. I don't really know what else more I should go over. I mean, as long as it runs good and it drives good, I can go over values, I guess. For this tractor right here, if I was to buy it, the way it sits with a front blade, sleeve hitch, tires, weights, it's probably worth at least $2,000, simply because it's repainted, it's got all new tires, and it's got a new engine in it with 35 hours on it. So it's worth that. Would I sell this for that? Absolutely not. I have more than that in it. But if you shake it down, $200 for the rear wheel weights, $200 for the sleeve hitch. That weight's $50 to $100. These tires and rims I could probably sell for 150 or 200 bucks used like they are. This set of tires and rims I could get at least 100 bucks for. The blade, 400 bucks. So right there, I mean, you've got a pretty good amount of money wrapped up just in some attachments that are on it. So, I mean, what I just went over was $1,200. So, you know, then you have the value of the tractor and the value of the engine. I've got over $500 in rebuilding this engine. So if it is rebuilt, oh, another thing, if someone says they have a rebuilt engine in their tractor, that's all well and good. If you're buying, it's not rebuilt unless they have paperwork though. So if you're someone who's restoring and you don't plan to sell, keep your paperwork anyway. It doesn't hurt. Document it. Do something so that if in 50 years, when your kids have to clean it out, they can say, this is when it was rebuilt. Another thing, if you're rebuilding, put an hour meter on it so somebody knows how many hours since the rebuild. That will also increase the value, because if I didn't have an hour meter on this tractor, I could say it has 5 hours on it since I rebuilt it. Well, it's got 35. So it's better to put the extra $30 towards an hour meter, in my opinion. But always check everything over. If someone says something's rebuilt, they're going to have to prove with paperwork, or it's not rebuilt for me. Somebody else might be different, but that's how I work. So if someone says that their tractor's rebuilt, ask for paperwork or proof or something. Like this tractor I rebuilt obviously on YouTube. So I have paperwork, and I can go right to the YouTube video and say, watch this. So it's one of those things that if you have paperwork, your value is higher. But yeah, I mean, this tractor here is probably worth $2,000 the way it sits. At least. Somebody might give me more if they wanted it. If I was to sell it how it sat, I'd have to have at least 4, just because I put a boatload of money into it. Now you walk over to this tractor, and it's a 1973, but otherwise it's the same thing, but it sat in a barn for 10 years. It's probably worth $500 or $600. The engine turns over. The guy claims that the transmission was rebuilt before it was parked. I don't have any reason not to believe him, but he didn't have paperwork. So I've just got to assume that it wasn't. But this is probably a $600 tractor as it sits. It doesn't run. Sat in a barn for 10 years, he said. But it's in decent shape. And it is still a 140 H3. The H3s are highly more valuable. If this tractor was an H1, for me, you should cut the value right in half immediately, because people don't want H1s for collections. You can only really mow with them. So if you're looking for a 140, those are some things to look for. If you have any questions, let me know. I don't think there's anything else I need to go over on this. If you want to see any other watch out for videos, let me know. I am going to do some more right away, but that's what I look for when I'm buying a 140. You can look for the same thing, or you can completely disregard what I said and do your own thing. But regardless, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was educational, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.